This session is part of the responses that we want to give from Catalyst to the complex funding situation that we are facing right now in the world for many reasons. And today we're going to talk about alternative source of funds and how to use mechanisms as crowdfunding and fiscal sponsorship to navigate this complex panorama. And I have the pleasure of have a very important speaker with us today, Mónica Carriillo Zegarra. Mónica is leading Myriad USA, a platform that support their and there is Monica that support their clients with crowdfunding and fiscal sponsorship. And I want to give the word to you, Monica, to take advantage of the time that we have to please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Myriad USA and the work that you have been doing.
Yes, sure. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I am Mónica Cariillo Zegarra. I am the director of Latin America and the Caribbean here in Myriad. We are a philanthropic organization based in the US, but we also have offices in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Hong Kong, and we are really covering Europe, including our main office in Brussels. So we were founded almost 50 years ago in Brussels as Kim Bowden Foundation. In kind of 1 year ago, we changed names to Myriad. So this is why it's important for me to mention, because Kim Bowden Foundation has a long history as a name, as a brand in Europe. So just our office in Brussels is called now Kim Bowden Foundation, but now we're Myriad USA, Myriad Canada, Myriad New Zealand, Myriad Australia. So we facilitate grants basically, but we also support donors in all the process of due diligence and trying to identify causes that are really related to their interests. So I don't know how we want to structure this conversation. I have some slides that I can share, but I am maybe open to any question that you have, or Gabby, just tell me how would you like to structure this conversation.
Fantastic. Today, we want to open the floor for conversation of our members, and I'm going to ask you to put your question in the Q&A section and also in the chat so we can respond as many questions as possible. But I also have a few questions for you that were made by our members in advance, and then I can give you the floor to share anything that you want to share. In the circumstances where we are, many of our members are asking which other source of fundings they can have access. We had the experience of a group of members that when the freezing of funds from USAID take place a few weeks ago, they put together a crowdfunding, and in less than 1 week, they raised $300,000. But we also have members that have been trying to understand how to use crowdfunding, which are other mechanisms that they want to use. And I want to start with you, making you that question, because I know that Myriad also support their clients with crowdfunding campaigns. So can you tell us a little bit about these alternative sources of funding and how they work?
Sure. It's maybe I would like to share. Can I share a slide, because I have the information here? If you allow me to share, I think I can share my screen now. Yes, I can share my screen. Okay, let me do that. So let me do that. Share. I just sent you a request. I think you need to give me some permission.
Okay, let me check. Maddie, can you help us with the permission? I think you were
I think now,
Monica, you should have it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So maybe it's important to start with something very, I think, relevant. I am not going to share my entire slides, but I think this slide is very important. Let me put bigger. So now, could you see my screen well? Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, okay. This data is of 2023 because we always need to wait 1 year for the data. But this slide is very interesting because we really can see the amount of money that is really donations coming from individuals. So why it is important to see this? Because when we are outside of the US, we are waiting, for an open call or just trying to be introduced to a foundation. But the reality in the US is that most of the donations are coming or going out from individuals, like 67% of the 100% donations. In 2023 in the US, the donations were $557 billion, from which 67% means like $374 billion really were from individuals. So just 19% from foundations and 7% from corporations and 8% like bequests. So in our case, for many years, we were very focused on this group of people, individuals. We can also add family foundations because by regulations, many family foundations, they cannot send international grants. Some of them, they can do that, but many of them, they really need an organization like Myriad for many reasons, for the bylaws, because some of them, they cannot do that, but sometimes also for the reputation. They don't want really to be too close to many organizations. Even if they are very committed, they would like that organization like Myriad can really assume the legal responsibility and also can be the face to IRS, which is the tax system. So in our case, there are many ways like donors can give money from the US, no? People can give cash, and the cash could be 100% deductible, always if they are not giving more than 60% of their annual income. It's something very important to remember that people can give stocks. And why stocks? Because usually organizations, and I see that every day, they don't ask stocks. But for many donors, stocks is cash, but it's not 100% cash. So we are really receiving a lot of stocks. And I always am talking and telling organizations, no, don't ask just for money. Just explore if the donor can give you stocks. We also are working with retirement plans. Why this is important? Because here in the US, many people, I don't know, they don't have descendants and they don't want that the government can really take away the money. So we can receive the retirement and the donor can assign an NGO to receive the money. No, of course, we have bequests, like, is legacy funds, if you want to be included in the will. But specifically about, I am moving fast.
Wait a minute, Monica, because I think there is something important. We have many members from around the world in the call, and we know that you're asking yourself if these stats that you present are similar around the world. And yes, according to the nonprofit fundraising statistics from 2024, 64% of the total giving in the world came from individual contributions. That means individual donations or donation of family or foundations and family organizations. So we are going to share with you, among the recording of these sessions, the reports where you can give also the stats of how the donations work around the world. Go ahead.
Yes, totally. And just to clarify, that data is just from the US, which is very important. So the US as a country is giving more than many countries of Europe together. So this is why it's very important to be focused in the US, because we have this culture of generosity, honestly. Besides any kind of differences or cultural differences that we can have when we analyze how is the US, but something very important is people donate since they are like children, and this is why we have this amount of money. Specifically related to your question about crowdfunding, we have one specific program called American Friends Funds, which is basically a fiscal sponsorship representation. So an organization based outside of the US should submit an application which include the bylaws, the financials, the list of the members of the board. We evaluate that, and if all is okay, we sign an agreement of cooperation. After that agreement, we set up a public crowdfunding page, which is saved in our directory of funds. Is public for everybody. So this is just a screenshot of how this looks. You will see that anybody can donate in card, with a wire PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, gift card, cryptocurrency, etc., etc., etc. And the organization will be able to create specific campaigns or programs, because sometimes a donor, they say, oh, I don't want to support the whole operations of the organization, but I want to support this specific program. So you have the option to create a specific like campaigns or projects. And I think something important about that is like you will have a dedicated sub-page, so you can even create a QR and share the QR with your donors. I have seen that a lot. If you are here in New York, for example, for any kind of conference that is very common, you can have a lunch, a breakfast, and in that moment, right away, if you share the QR with a sticker, a donor can donate, and that donation will be tax exempt for the donor. So this is kind of a very practical tool that you guys can, of course, access. We can have individual conversations with any organization, but I can really share the whole process of application, and you just can let me know. So if you have an American Friends Fund, this is something interesting because we are sharing the information with all of our networks. We have a newsletter. We also have a brochure that has a printed version that we share with all of our network. We are not doing fundraising for each organization because that will be very difficult. By now, we have 1,500 American Friends Funds. But our mission is really to provide the infrastructure. No, we also have a beautiful office in Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, very close to Bryant Park, to Grand Central. You are free to use our conference room for 8 people for free, of course. We can cover the lunch, the breakfast. The idea is like you feel that media is kind of an epicenter that can help you guys to grow and to expand your ideas and your opportunities. So I will stop now because I have many other tools, but I think I would like to hear if you have any question about this specific tool, or Gabby, just let me know.
Yes, Monica, you mentioned some tools for organization in US, but what happened with organization around the world? Can they have access to this kind of source of resources? Can they have interactions with Myriad? And what is needed to put together a crowdfunding campaign?
So this is really a tool for organizations outside of the US. This is kind of the DNA of our work. We are in the US, but the idea is if you are in Kenya, so we have American friends, of course, around the world, basically Kenya, Brazil, Uganda, no, Europe. So you need to submit an application, and we create really this agreement in which we are allowed to receive tax-exempt donation that we can send you as a grant. So that is something very important. So you can apply from any country. We are really not too close to the US agenda. We have some American friends and some partnerships in the US, but the core of our work is really to support international organizations. And if you have any tax exempt donation coming, for example, from Canada, from Europe, from Australia, from New Zealand, I can also introduce you with my colleagues in each country, and the money can be receiving in our office in Australia, and after we send the money as a grant to your country. No, that is really how we operate. I don't know if it's clear now.
There is a lot of question about if you can apply from different countries. The response is yes. We will share the information with you. But Monica, I want to go back from a minute to not just focus on Myriad, but in general in the sector. You know, there is this feeling that with the freezing of funds, the sector is going to be in crisis. But when we analyze that week the stats of giving around the world, in every single country in the world, the individual giving is higher than the public funds or even the international grants. Which are the ways in which an organization could have access to these individual funds, what they can do? Some of our members don't have experience with crowdfunding and they don't know how that works. Can you explain us a little bit more the basics of how it works if I want to get access to individual donors?
Yeah, really, all depends. I have seen cases where there is an organization located in a very remote community, like you need to fly, for example, to Peru, from Peru take a flight from Lima to Cusco, from Cusco, like a boat for one day, and they are receiving international donations and sometimes more money than an organization located in the capital. So I feel fierce if you are located, for example, in a very remote area where you're receiving people from outside. I am seeing that a lot in very, for example, like environmental collective groups where people really are receiving a lot of tourists. So that tourist that is paying taxes in the US, in that moment, of course, it's very common that they can feel committed to support the community, but they don't know how. But if you have an American friends right away, even if you are in the middle of nowhere, that donor can support you. So this is something very important. So you need to analyze your context, but it doesn't mean that if you are in a rural area, very, very isolated, you won't have support. Maybe you can have more support. I also see a lot with the volunteers, former volunteers that they visited your communities to do support when they are in high school or when they are like in the college. This kind of audience that they live in the US and they have any kind of connections, they can be really very supportive. No, the other group that I see is academic people. No, there are many people doing a lot of research about many topics in our countries, in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America. So if you contact them, they maybe are very likely to create a circle, a given circle here in the US to support that cause. But the idea is to knock the door and to identify, do I have any contact outside of my country, like specifically in the US, for a former volunteer, an academic who was visiting, or just a tourist, or a friend or family. So of course, we are also trying to reach people that are not necessarily too connected to our community. This is a different kind of audience that feel very connected because love the cause. But I think you need to start for what is really more familiar to you. If you want to reach an individual, you don't need to travel to the US at all. You don't need to speak English, but you always need to identify around your 360 degrees who is in the US and what is your connection in the US.
Thank you, Monica. There is a question about the need for an initial investment. Mark Andre shared in the chat that crowdfunding campaigns require an initial investment of 10 to 20% of the targeted amount in terms of marketing, products sold during the campaign, etc. What the organizations that don't have that initial budget can do, I can respond from my side and I can pass it to you.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
in a single crowdfunding campaign that I have been involved, and I have been involved in several in the last 10 years, we did an initial investment of anything. What we did was to have a very clear message and a very clear call to action for the people. And we start the campaign with our own networks. The power of friends and family. Ask a friend, can you share this with 5 more people? And that 5 more people can share it with other 5. Could be really powerful, but I want to give it to you and get your feedback on that. Do you believe that it's needed to have this 10 or 20% of your targeted amount as an initial investment?
No, I think it's more important what you say, that you really, what is your plan, no? If your plan is trying to, for example, reach the diaspora of your community, here in Brooklyn, there are many people from Haiti and from Trinidad and Tobago. So you need to have a plan. No, your family, your relatives, former visitors in your community. In our case, for Myriad, you don't need to have a goal. You don't need to have a minimum amount. You don't need to have donors confirmed to create an American Friends Fund. No, so, but the idea for us, you need to have a commitment that you are going to do something at least in 1 year, no? But we are very flexible with that, because we understand that not everybody is ready with a big package. But yes, it's very important that you have a plan, no? I know that different organizations of crowdfunding, they offer different solutions, but in the case of media, we are more simple with that, no?
Monica, there is a lot of questions about if you can share in a special package, if your local office can connect with our members. What we are going to do to respond each one of your questions is to send with the recording of these sessions all the details about how you can connect with Myriad and other crowdfunding platforms and other sources of funds. And there is also a question about if the social entrepreneurs can access to other kinds of investment like equity. In this particular call, we are focusing more on philanthropic funds and how we can get access to other sorts of donations and philanthropic funds. But we have another session on Monday that we are going to see other sorts of funds more like connected with the private sector and investment. But I'm going to pass it to you, Monica, and see if you have any view related with that access to other sources of capital.
Yeah, so in our case, we are really, so legally, we are allowed to set up a crowdfunding page just for NGOs, but could be for cultural institutions, museums, universities. So in the case of for-profit institutions, we can send tax-exempt donations, yes, as something that we call advice gift, means one-time transaction. One time could be many times, but we cannot create a permanent crowdfunding page. So if you have, for example, any contributor here, even an individual, or maybe a company or a restaurant, whatever space that wants to support a for-profit organization for a we call charitable action. No, so we can send the money. For example, if you want to do a campaign after a earthquake, if you want to buy groceries for a community, so we can send the money as a grant, even if it's a for-profit organization. But in that case, something that I saw, for example, if you have a company, even a startup operating in your country, you can ask, hey, do you have an office in the US? Do you have stocks in the US? And I have seen in that case, many cases where really even a small company here or startups, they want to support their peers outside of the US, and we can help them to move the money, you know. But we are not actively looking for that kind of support, honestly, because we are working more with nonprofits. But if you have an alternative or an option here, we can help you. Or we can help the organization. No?
Thank you, Monica. There is a question in the chat about if the tax exception applies for other countries that are not US. Yes. United Kingdom, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, United States, the Netherlands, France, Australia, Spain, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, and most of the Asian countries has tax exception for their citizens. That means if you donate for an organization, you receive a deduction in your taxes. That's why it's so important to have your target audience in those countries. Which are the keys, Monica, to establish a target audience? Which kind of things our members should take into consideration when they are establishing the target audience and the messaging of the campaign? Because what is needed in the messaging, most of the people say that it's easier to get funds if you are very straightforward and you do the campaign for a specific project. Can you tell us a little in your experience how which works better?
Yes, sure. I think, yeah, it's true. You need to be very specific. So if you want to get money from individuals, you need to be aware many people with a lot of money, they don't have any kind of information about how the world functions outside of the US. So even if we want to share more and sophisticated concepts about, you know, structural transformations, people can feel that they are connected, but they are not really understanding what's going on. So it's very important that you can be very specific and you can use some language that can resonate in the culture in the US. We have a training that we are offering once a month free online, where we are really inviting different experts and they are talking about that. For example, here people use a lot the word abolitionist, no, but it's more connected to incarceration of people, no. So, or here, people are giving money in Giving Tuesday, Black Friday, that we don't have that in our countries, maybe. So, how we really can use as an opportunity the moments where people in the US are giving more because it's connected to their cultural interests. We have also the Latino month. We have the Women's Day. So there are different moments along the year where people can give more, and maybe they are looking forward to give more. And of course, before the end of the year, like December, we receive a lot of donations December 31st, December 30, because this is the last day that people can donate to really be tax exempt. No? So there are many, many keys that, of course, I will be very happy to share with everybody.
If an organization is having issue because part of their budget is not available anymore, how much time it took to put together a crowdfunding campaign or to start the process of learning from you and trying to get other sorts of funds? And you can also explain us a little bit about the connections that you can make for the organizations with other foundations and other funders.
Yeah, so can take 1 month. We review applications twice a month, but I'd say 1 month, but to be more conservative, but sometimes we can move faster. And in terms of connections, so officially we are not really connecting the NGOs with our network. First, because many of our donors, of course, they are private and we cannot disclose the information of our donors. No, we highlight our donors in different materials in our web. We have a brochure, we have a newsletter, we have a spotlight, but we cannot really knock the door of our donors for privacy, basically. But what we are doing is when we have the opportunity, we invite some organizations to be speakers in different conferences where many of the conferences are restricted just for donors. No, we are members of different networks of peers as philanthropists. And what we like always to do is invite our American friends to have an opportunity to share what they are doing. If the conference, of course, match with the mission of the organization. We cannot offer that for more than 1,000 organizations, of course, but basically I am sharing this because we are always looking forward to create an infrastructure, no, for the organizations. So there are some consultants that you always can hire that we can refer. We are not working directly with them, but we have an entire network of consultants that they can support you guys. But it's just something like we are not doing 100%, but we are always here happy to support, no?
Monica, we talk a little bit about the crowdfunding mechanism, but there is also another mechanism like matching fund or a challenge that organization can use to get access to other sorts of fund. Do you have any experience with matching funds? Did you know how that works and how our members can use it, even using the budget that they already have available?
What we have, so we are working very close with different matching programs with employees. No, so for example, like there are many banks here that they have this program of matching. So you can contact some employees of big offices here in the US, or maybe in your country, if you have a transnational like company. I don't want to mention names because we are working with many of them, but if you have any, coffee company in your country that is a global chain, no, you can talk to the workers in your country, and the workers in your country can recommend to the company, hey, we want to support this company, this NGO in Colombia. So what we are doing is we receive the request and the companies say, Monica, we want to send money to this organization in Colombia because our employees are requesting that, and we process the money. So basically you can do a mapping about which company in your country also have offices in the US that are kind of big, and you can start exploring with the employees if they have that possibility of doing these matching programs or any kind of things that you guys can really receive money. Many of the companies, they also have an office in the regions. No, so well, not say big companies. You have Coca-Cola, you have Starbucks, you have many companies. They have a regional office and they have an office in the US. So there are many ways how you can really access to the funds if you knock the door, maybe, So.
And how someone that never has this kind of plan of funding, because many organizations has always receiving international grants from public sources. They never had the experience of doing fundraise to crowdfunding or matching fund or participating in challenge for donors, which could be the first step, where they can learn how to do it. And in your experience, which are the most successful practices?
I think to have a meeting, an internal meeting to discuss how you guys can diversify the source of money. Sounds a little bit rhetoric, but it's okay. Let's have a list. We are receiving usually money from the government or maybe international money, but more like based in open calls. But if you really go, for example, to Google it and find like donations, women's health, Choco, you really will find donors and the name of foundations that they are supporting Choco, women's health. So it's more like, because in my case, when I was more working for nonprofits, I say how I can find the name of these organizations that are outside of the radar. We know Open Society for Foundation, but what else? So there are hundreds and thousands of organizations, but we just need to do a Google search with keywords that include not just, for example, Colombia. No, you should be very specifically. And maybe you will have a long list of foundations that you can knock the door. Many foundations, honestly, they don't have open calls anymore. And this is something important to remember. 90% of my colleagues that I really know, they don't have open calls. All is by introduction. Even Myriad, when we have some opportunities, we don't have an open call. What happened when a donor come to me and they say, I don't have an organization, could you recommend me? Yes, I go to my American friend list or I call my colleagues. Because sometimes I don't have any organization in my American friends that I can refer. So the best strategy, I think, even if the organization says we are not accepting requests, you can request a meeting, an informative meeting. You can say, hey, I would like to know more about your vision, about what you are doing, about the strategies, and you need to start a conversation with the foundation without necessarily pitching 100% your project. And the other strategy is talk to the foundation that they are already supporting to ask them to introduce you with other foundation. Hey, I saw that this organization is supporting our region, but it's just per invitation. Could you just please open the door just for an informational conversation? That is the only way, honestly, right now, because sadly, many of the foundations, they don't have open calls anymore, which is very not democratic, honestly. But I think the criteria is like, we are not really a big staff. Many of the foundations, we are not a big staff. You can have 5 people that they need to review maybe, 5,000 applications, 4,000 applications, or 1,000 applications when you have an open call. And I think that criteria is we don't want the organizations that just waste their time, filling a long form, and we don't want to create too much expectations. Let's find consultants in different countries that they can help us to identify organizations. So for us, our American Friends Funds, since it's a public directory, it's also a tool that we provide to our donors when they are looking for initiatives.
Thank you, Monica. We have a question in the chat. John asked, do you support small grassroots organizations in rural places that don't have access to matching fund?
Oh, yes. We have many small organizations, many grassroots organizations, but basically, as I say before, our support is because a donor, come to us saying, I want to support this organization, or because the organization decided to start a campaign. And when they have the campaign, of course, if there is someone in our network, our donors that they want to support, we always can introduce. But the idea is that the rural organization, it doesn't matter that they don't speak English, that they are far. They have always the possibility to design a campaign using the strategies that I mentioned, like family, relatives, academics, tourists. You should find a way, if you really are looking forward to find people here in the US.
Thank you, Monica. We have more members joining in the last minute, so I want to do a recap of what we spoke till now. And also I want to share with you some tips that one of our experts share with us. They couldn't be with us today because they had issue with their connectivity, but is the Kickstarter team, and they share with us some key elements that you need to take in consideration to do a successful crowdfunding campaign and a successful diversified source of funding initiative. So number one, they recommend us to have at least 5 different sources of fund. And that sounds super difficult and complicated for the organizations that are used to have traditional funds, but they have some ideas for you. One of the ideas is related with an ambassador plan. And this is something that is very successful for organizations like UNICEF. They have godmothers and godfathers that support their initiative. And many local organizations and grassroots develop these godmother and godfathers programs with their own community. We have some examples of members that raise the money that they need. Almost 30% of their budget came from those programs. So it's worthwhile to learn how to do it. Second, another source of funds, as Monica was mentioning, is the crowdfunding campaign. Crowdfunding campaign as more specific as better. And you don't need to have just one crowdfunding campaign. You can have crowdfunding campaign for different initiatives inside your organization. They also mentioned the importance to have access to non-traditional funds. That means every artist, most of the business leaders, most of the family offices donate directly to organizations without having open calls for grant, as Monica was mentioning. Also participate in Giving Challenge. They are different platforms are there. We are going to share with you one of them, the Good Ask, who have challenged where the organizations can participate and have access to other sources of fund. And finally, understand how you can develop products that you can share with your community and receive incomes from that. So those are their key elements to diversify your sources of funds. I would love to hear, Monica, if you have any other or any idea that complement these recommendations from Kickstarter team.
Yes, sure. I was sharing in the chat because they requested me to share some links. So I feel something important is about the DAF, donor advised funds. I don't know if you're familiar, but donor advised funds are now kind of the most popular mechanisms that donors use to give money. Donor advised funds that we call DAF, D-A-F, is basically a structure where a donor can give us or give everybody an amount of money. We provide an immediate tax-exempt receipt, and the donor can take time to take decisions about where the money will go. So there are donor advised funds that are administered by many people, but wealthy managers. We also have donor advised funds. So I recommend go online and check how I can access to donor advised fund, DAF, o fondos aconsejados por donantes en español. No, because now, so really, especially many individual donors or companies, sometimes family foundations, more individuals, they are like working with wealth managers. So you need to try to find who is the wealth manager of this person, of this company, and trying to access to that individual, no? Something else that I think that could be important is advised gift. So their advised gift is kind of one-time transaction when an individual donor wants to support an organization, but maybe needs time to build a relationship. So if you find an individual who really has a lot of potential to support, you don't need to maybe ask for a lot of money, but just, hey, give me 5,000, and that 5,000, for example, Myriad, we can administrate the money. We can ensure or be sure with the donor that we will do a very clear due diligence, and the donor can set up the rules about what kind of report they want. Some donors, they can be very flexible. Some donors say, I just want to give the money if the organization will spend in ABCD. So working with an intermediary or with a facilitator, not just Myriad, someone else, can help the donor to really be more flexible and say, okay, I will give the money, no? So trying to also always offer your donor in the US that possibility to kind of create more relationship, more confidence. And after that, of course, is a big possibility that you can establish a long-term relationship. No, but you need to start for maybe with something small.
Thank you, Monica. There is another question. Is what could be the reason grant makers are not longer having open calls? Do you have any idea? And how organizations can have access to networking events and things where they can have connection with these gatekeepers, because it's not easy to have a relation with a DAF manager or with a wealth manager, which could be the first step for them.
I think participate in conferences spaces. I think that is the most important thing. I know that we don't have, for example, in many countries, money to travel, no? But if you can really allocate money for that, that will be really great, because you need to be in connection with people, no? I know that sometimes organizations, they participate in thematic conferences, no? So if we are working in climate, we are attending a conference about climate, but maybe we can attend a conference about systemic change that is not necessarily too connected to our topic. But this conference can give me the opportunity to meet people, to meet donors that are really outside of my common radar. And I see that that could be a very, very good strategy. And sometimes that conferences can be in our region, no? But you need to kind of maybe expand, the common spaces where you really are participating, and allocate money in your office for someone who can really be always looking for money. I know that this is the role of the director usually, but people can maybe pay for a consultant. It could be $500 for 6 months, but that $500 will be invested in organizing a chart with all the deadlines for open calls or all the doors that you want to knock. So that kind of small step, not with a lot of money, but it's more like a mindset, because I saw that usually that the directors are doing that work and something else, no? Because a CEO is always very busy. So just allocating that small amount of money will be very helpful for that.
Thank you, Monica. I think we have only 15 more minutes, and I want to recap some of the key messages and also share with you some ideas that the Kickstarter team give us to have a successful crowdfunding campaign. But taking back of our conversation, more than 60% of the donations in the world came from individuals. I know that when the situation or the funding situation started to be complex a few weeks ago, the comments were, we are in a crisis, most of the money for the humanitarian sector and social sector is not available anymore, which is not necessarily true if you see the stats. That money represents less than the 20% of the resources that were outside available for the social sector. But there is a reality connected to that, which is the funding scenario changed forever, probably. So that means we need to adapt the strategy of our organizations to be able to navigate that new scenario. And this new scenario include to learn how to diversify my source of funds, how to deal with the wealth manager and DAF, how to get access to crowdfunding campaign and know how to promote a crowdfunding campaign, and also how to do matching fund and participate in donor challenge. So those are things that we need to learn how to do together. But in the particular scenario of the crowdfunding campaigns, we have 11 tips that are like the recommended tip from Kickstarter. They're always repeated, and they share it with us to share it with you. The first one is, when you do a crowdfunding campaign, you need to be prepared in advance. What that means, in most of the crowdfunding campaigns, around 30% of the money is raised in the first week. And the reason why people donate is because other people is donating. It's very unlikely that someone that don't know you is going to donate in your campaign if the amount is zero. So that means you need to reach out friends, family, previous partners, previous donors, and agree with them to be the first donating in your campaign, so that will motivate other people to donate. Second, the most important part of a crowdfunding campaign is the story. The people that is donating individually is not interested in statistics or data. As much as I love statistics, because my previous background as a researcher, people don't like it. People donate because they engage with your story. So be aware of the importance of tell the story of your work and be very clear. As much as straightforward the narrative and the storytelling, as much donations you will receive. Another important part of the crowdfunding campaign is to have a very compelling videos. The crowdfunding campaigns that has videos are 66% more successful than the campaigns that doesn't have. And some of you probably will say, I don't have money to do a video, I don't have resources, but there is a lot of possibilities to get support to have videos. You can reach out our team and we can help you and connect you with organizations that do videos or pro bono campaigns for organizations. So in that way, you can have a very professional video for your campaign. Another important thing is you can include in your campaign rewards for the people that is donating, and that not necessarily needs to be products. The reward could be you will receive a letter from one of the children that is in the program. We will let you know what is happening with the mom that you support. We will send you more information about what is happening with the program that you are supporting. So those kind of rewards that are not product that cost money, but more connected with the spirit of the work that you are doing are very important for the people that is donating. And this is going to be crazy, but it's one of the main mistakes in the crowdfunding campaign is you need to have a clear call to action, because some of the people put together the campaigns, but they are afraid of say donate, and people don't know where to donate. So that's why use platforms like Myriad, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and some other is very important because they help you to be very clear in the call to action. Another important point is learn how to analyze the statistics of your social media and website. A lot of organizations dedicate money and time to connect their crowdfunding campaign with their websites, and their websites don't have enough visitors. It's easier and cheaper to connect it with social media probably, or use the tools that the crowdfunding platforms allow you to use. And finally, prepare to the end of your campaign. When one of the main difference between the resources that you receive in a crowdfunding campaign and what you could receive from a grant is the funds from a crowdfunding campaign are unrestricted funds. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to do follow-up, because you need to respond to your donors if you want to keep them engaged for your next campaign. So that means you need to have a way to report them what is happening with the program that they are supporting. And that could be a newsletter, that could be also a follow-up letter, or that could be a report at the end of the project. Those are the recommendations of Kickstarter for you. I would love to hear, Monica, what you think about it, and if you have any other recommendations.
Yes. Something that I notice is when you are kind of a big could you hear me? Yeah. When you are a big organization that are doing many things, many donors, they really don't support too much, because many donors, they really want to see a concrete example. No, if you are a foundation, for example, or many, especially impact investment groups, they are supporting small businesses, no? So it's very difficult for a donor to understand the mission, or even if they understand the mission, they get lost about, oh, this organization is also supporting 5 other groups, 5 other organizations, 5 other startups. So my suggestion is, when you have your crowdfunding page, you can create sections when you specifically talk about your specific programs. No, for example, if you are working with children with disabilities, so you create a section for that, and you create a different section for women, a different section for food and agroecology. So that is the only, I think, way where a regular donor that is outside of your radar can feel connected and attracted. I also would like to mention that in the case of Myriad, that we are not necessarily just a platform, we can provide a letter that you guys can use to apply for grants in the US that are restricted for NGOs registered in the US. So I mentioned that because sometimes there are many open calls here that you can use the money outside of the US, but you should apply just if you are based here. So this is when we can support, of course, if the donor accept that. No, we provide a letter saying we are the 501c3 representing your organization, and you can have more room to explore regular or more traditional open calls. I also suggest to explore Candid, CANDID is a web connected to Foundation Center. They have a directory of foundations. You need to pay a membership, but I think they offer a trial for 1 month. Basically there, all the foundations that they support any cause in the US and outside, they should submit a report to the IRS, which is the tax system. So you can find in Candid the name of the foundation, where they send the money, and the amount. So that is very helpful because you really can find names of foundations that are outside of the radar. Many family foundations, many business foundations. So try to talk to Candy and just explore and have a long list of new names that you can use to knock the door. No?
Thank you, Monica. We have one more question in the chat. Someone asked how they can connect with you and which kind of service do you offer. I think, well, you put some links, and we're also going to send the recording of these sessions with the connections to reach out Monica, all the links and all the platforms that we mentioned, so you can get access. Monica, you have any final message of recommendation in these last minutes?
Yes. Basically, it doesn't matter that you are far, that you don't speak English, or you speak a different language. You can always access to donors here in the US if you create a message that is very clear, very concise, and use any kind of network, even personal network, friends, former volunteers. That component, I think, is very important for me to just very, very clear that there is always a chance. And we are working with thousands of organizations with that characteristic that are very far, very outside of this world, no? That is here in New York. So there is always an opportunity. And in my case, of course, I am very happy to talk to everybody. And yes, we can create a specific kind of setup for you guys, and the fees and all the information is there, but we can create something special that can help. For example, void that setup fee for the American friends. If you really want to do that, of course, we will be very happy. And just remember, in our case, we have offices in Canada, Australia, Mexico, New Zealand, Europe. If you have any donor in each country that they want to support you, you just can let me know, and I can introduce you with my colleagues in my other offices. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Monica. We will send all the information.
Thank you.
The recording. Thank you for dedicating this time. We also want to give more resources and more source of funds for you to navigate this complex funding scenario. So next Monday, we are going to have a session about cross-sectorial funding and cross-sectorial collaboration on how to work with private companies and local public funds, which is something that could be very useful for your organization, especially the organizations located in the Global South. So that will be next Monday. You will receive all the information today, and we will keep sharing with you all the resources and all the materials that we have in Catalyst. You know that you have access to the crowdfunding resources that our learning and system change team put together. The fundraising toolkit is available in different language. We also have available resources in impact investment, and some of the resources are for profits, some of the resources for nonprofits. So you can read it and use what is needed for your organization. So I hope this will be helpful, and this will help you in this complex time to navigate it. So hope to see you on Monday. And thank you so much again, Monica, for being with us today.
Un placer y encantada de conversar. Sorry, it's my pleasure. And I will be very happy to talk to anyone who wants to wants to learn more about Myriad, and also introduce to my colleagues from Africa, from Europe, that they are working specifically in different regions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. See you on Monday. Bye.